Ukrainians really don't want that. So most of them don't. Some of them in the eastern part of the country are more sympathetic to the Russian view than
Hmm.
the West, especially in the center, is more leaning towards the EU as well. Well, he then the protests began, so he said, "Okay, okay, fine. I don't like this." After three former presidents joined the protests, he said, "Okay, I will go back to the EU." He did that, and then within 24 hours, reversed again and announced a trip to Moscow, where he signed a trade agreement with Russia. Kind of didn't piss off the people at all because they only then started saying he shouldn't come back to the country, and instead of just demanding that he signed with the EU, they demanded that he be removed from office.
Hmm.
Well, so that was 2 months ago. And this is, again, the middle of winter in the Ukraine. It's not exactly a pleasant time of year or part of the world to be in this time of the year. It's cold out. But it hasn't kept tens of thousands of protesters from maintaining a camp in Independence Square in Kiev, as well as over the last couple of weeks, taking over more and more government buildings around this square. And then over this last week, um, the president pushed through Parliament a bill that banned protesting. It, um, yeah, on last Sunday, the bill was passed Friday, and it bans protesting. It cut freedom of speech, cut freedom of the press, and allowed the government to ban citizens from using the internet and classified any advocacy groups as foreign agents if they received money from abroad, which is very similar to some Russian legislation, but actually went further than the Russian legislation even has. And it
Hmm.
was condemned, and that news of that brought 200,000 people to the square. And that was when it became violent. They attacked the police. Police shot back. And it's gone back and forth. But one thing I did love was on one night, I believe it was, look at this. Tuesday night, three Orthodox priests went in between the two sides with one holding a cross, one holding a relic, one holding incense, and they chanted and prayed for peace and stopped the violence for a night. And I was like, that's pretty impressive of those three guys.
Yeah. No, I
But yeah,
saw that.
hero.
I thought that was pretty amazing.
Put that one in the chat. But they only lasted the one night, and then there's been ceasefires off and on between the police and protesters until um, this weekend on Friday when the president said, okay, fine, we will deal. Well, we have to wait till Tuesday when I will call emergency meeting of parliament and we can discuss things then. And so the ceasefire took place and everyone stopped pushing and just hung out for the most part. And then yesterday, on Saturday there, he offered, after meeting with the leaders of the opposition, there's three main leaders, he offered two of them positions in the government, which first off goes, okay, he doesn't want the one guy in, so he's trying to separate them. He
Right.
offered the former economic minister, Arseniy Yatsenyuk. This is why I wanted Katrina here to tell me how to pronounce these names correctly. But he offered him the prime minister role, and he offered the deputy prime minister job to Vitaly Klitschko, the former boxing champion. That position, they took that offer back to the protesters, and today the answer was pretty clear. No, that's not acceptable. We're going to stay here and continue doing what we came to do, which is remove Yakunovich from office. They've even now seized another government building. The Justice Building is now in. The one they did attack and then left alone was the Energy Building, because the energy minister was there personally. He pleaded with them not to mess with stuff so they didn't screw up power for the country. Which I was like, fair. It's the middle of winter. You kind of want your heat on, right? So the protesters have it surrounded and the police can't get near it, but they've left the building alone instead of occupying the others like they have and made them fortresses as much as they could. if you watch the live feed, they move the camera around, so it's hard to tell what you're looking at sometimes, especially when it's dark like it is now. I'm gonna put that in the chat too, though. They most of what you see is gonna be lit by fires only, a little bit of light, but for the most part, it's just lit by fires. And there's the barricades, and there's protesters that are lined behind the barricades, and a couple scouts out front keep an eye on the lines of police on the other side. But for the most part, it's just pretty peaceful scene right now. Though with the shadowiness and all dark and the sandbags full of snow everywhere, it kind of looks like a war zone. Even in the just because it's lit by firelight only most. But so that's that point we're at now is they've said no, that's not enough, and kind of waiting for Sunday to, or not for Sunday for Monday to come and see what Yanukovych comes back with. Does he give more ground, or does we go back to slight negotiations, or was that his only offer? The big thing was one of the opposition did say that they didn't accept it partially because it still left him in control, and he was selecting who was being put into public positions rather than the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of it was, no, give us an election. That might be enough. Give us an election. We can vote you out of office instead of you being forced out. And then if we are supposed to be there, the people can vote us in. So that's pretty much where we're at right now with that.
Makes sense.
Still, I mean, it's been good that not that more people haven't been killed, especially, I mean, you've got lots of when they're fighting each other, it's pretty bad. I mean, there's a picture I saw somewhere where there's a policeman completely engulfed in flames because he took a firebomb direct hit. I mean, he didn't die because I haven't heard of any police deaths, but I don't think he's probably feeling too well.
I've heard some pretty bad, some pretty bad stuff going on.
I mean, it's not civil, that's for sure.
Which again just shows how awesome it is to live here in America, because we haven't had that anarchy.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty lucky to avoid that. And we have talked about the Thailand protests there. One protester was killed today as the government tried forcing early elections through. And a protester was killed as the protesters went around and blocking all the voting places. Well, they were successful in keeping 45 of the 50 closed. Which kind of says a lot about when you have a country the size of Thailand, and I'm sorry, that was just in Bangkok, but they were able that the government only has 50 polling stations. They're being very selective about where they allow people to vote. But that one, the constitutional court that they have basically has come around and is saying that the people do have the right, in case of emergency, that the election can be postponed. And that was the government's response was, okay, instead of postponement, we're going to have it now. And we're not, because the people are demanding a later election to give the opposition more time to prepare. And so the country's response, or the government's response to that was, okay, instead of postponing it, we're just going to have it now so that you have even less time.
Because that makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of not going anywhere there. But yeah, it's a shame people are losing their lives over it. And then in Cairo, yesterday was the third anniversary of the overthrow of Hansi Mubarak. And people were killed as Muslim Brotherhood affiliates and supporters came out and clashed with people celebrating, and they clashed with the security forces as well. And you had 3 suicide bombings in on Friday, as well as today an Egyptian military helicopter was shot down by militants in the Sinai. So another round of violence there. And they had it also, the government announced that presidential elections will be coming up soon. I don't think they released a date. They are changing the Constitution. The old Constitution always had parliamentary elections before the presidential, but now the presidential will be before the parliamentary, which the Muslim Brotherhood is accusing the interim government of trying to put a military leader who is the interim president, but try to maintain him there by voting him in early.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that's just the Muslim Brotherhood is still considered a terrorist organization, even though, and they're being blamed for those suicide attacks, even though a affiliate of Al Qaeda claimed them as theirs, not the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, Ansar Bait al-Maqdis is the Egyptian affiliate of Al Qaeda, and they've been claiming responsibility for these attacks, but the Egyptian government keeps saying, no, it's the Muslim Brotherhood. Ignore the Al Qaeda. So it's kind of like, even at the expense of ignoring Al Qaeda, they're doing everything they can to paint the Muslim Brotherhood as bad as they can.
Well, there we go. Oh, apparently Metallica is going to be on the Grammys tonight.
You're back to the Grammys.
I'm only saying that because I'm looking at Twitter and everything is... it's all kind of exploded.
One big story, well, it should have been a bigger story than it was, but I have not seen anyone other than Fox actually pick this up, but I had an article out about it on my site before they did. This Russian national who's 19 and going to not university, but Penn State University in Altoona, that link's in the chat now. He was under investigation as part of a marijuana growing operation. Mm-hmm. Well, the police found bomb-making materials and a suitcase with a bomb in it that he had already made. So they arrest him on the charges are possessing a weapon of mass destruction, possessing instruments of crime, possessing incendiary devices, possessing prohibited offensive weapons. I like that one. Recklessly endangering another person, risking a catastrophe. That's another good one. And then the multiple drug offenses. At this time, they're not sure what his motive or intended target was, but with all the attention that Russian terrorists are getting now with the Olympics coming up, it is interesting that a Russian national is arrested in Pennsylvania with a bomb.
Yeah.
Now, the Pennsylvania State Police Bomb Squad was able to safely defuse and disassemble the bomb, so that was good news, and they got it beforehand, but a little scary, too, that, here you just, in Altoona, Pennsylvania, guy's got a bomb he made and was making more, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know what to... That's creepy.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
I mean, it's bad enough we had, how many we had 2 school shootings and the shooting in the Maryland Mall this week, over the last few days.
We had one, let's see, you're talking about Purdue.
And, was it South Carolina? There was 3 and one. There was 3 reported shootings, and then one turned out it had just been a drill.
Yeah. Oklahoma wasn't.
Yeah, Oklahoma was a drill. Yes, South Carolina and Purdue were actual, and then they had the Maryland Mall shooting as well. One person dead at Purdue. That one seemed like, from witnesses said that the guy went in, shot the other person, and then left the building, shooting, or he set the gun down before he left the building, hands up as he went out and surrendered to police.